when we got to meet Bruce Beresford, who's our writer-director for one of our films in London, and sitting down with him going, wow, okay, here's a guy I've loved since forever, Driving Miss Daisy, Tender Mercies, and we're sitting across the table and he's saying yes to writing and directing our project.
Wow.
That was just
God
like,
moment.
And I think even the better part is he was all fanboy over my grandfather because he is a huge Korngold fan.
Yeah.
He directed one of my grandfather's operas when it premiered at the Sydney Opera House.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Life Off Screen. I'm Dan Ruppel. This is my lovely wife, Peggy Ruppel. And, this is such a joy doing this show because we get to talk to dear friends. And you might get tired of us saying that. They're dear friends, but they are. That's one of the joys of working in this industry so long. We've met so many wonderful, wonderful people who have a passion for film, but have a deep-rooted faith, and they're just wonderful to hang with.
Yes, they're all about transformative films, and because they're transformed people.
Ah, good way to put it.
They are. They're remarkable.
That'd be a good slogan. We should put that behind us. I like that. That's really, really good.
So tell us about our guests.
Well, they're certainly under that category of just dear friends who have such a passion for the industry, as well as a deep-rooted faith in Christ. And you're going to hear about their journey. You're going to hear how they came to this a little bit later in life, in their marriage as well. And it's Gary and Honnie Korngold. And Gary Korngold, who has spent most of his adult life in the business world, but he comes from Hollywood royalty. His grandfather was Erich Korngold, who multi-Academy Award-winning film composer, and he's iconic, and he's thought of as the most influential. He's thought of as the father of cinematic scoring. So you're going to hear a little bit of that journey as he met Honnie and started working in the film industry with her.
Yeah, the integration is interesting to hear about, right?
Yeah, it is.
And her as well. She came to it from a nonprofit background, and then she jumps in and she has her own production company. And she's now doing films that are just major iconic directors, as well as different people starring in it. So just that sequential steps that she took along the way. And so she's also working in Atlanta, helping to build the film industry there, a company called PhilanthroFilms that's a nonprofit in Georgia, and bringing more people to Southern Georgia and letting them know, because that's been the door of opportunity for her there as well. And what we've been involved in and love is her Story to Screen conference. She just launched it, and it was a huge hit. And so she is a learner and an encourager, and just a pilgrim in this process. So we love them, and we hope you enjoy it.
Let's just jump into it. Gary and Honnie,
yes,
welcome.
Hey guys, this is so much fun.
It is so good to see you. We miss you so much. And you guys, being quarantined, you must be going crazy, because I don't know anybody who travels as much as you guys.
Yes, truly.
You're always, I'll text you and go, where are you? You're always either at an airport or someplace. But how long have you been in the house?
2 months.
Since March 1st.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this the other day. I think this is the longest in Gary's lifetime, and probably mine too, that we have not been on a plane.
Really?
I believe it.
Well,
Really?
definitely in the last probably 40 years, for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
Gary's got something like 5 million miles in the air, something crazy like
Wow.
that.
Whoa.
I'm a fraction of that, but we definitely travel a lot.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit interesting to be.
Yes.
It's an adjustment, but I like it because I can sit in my recliner. I put my tray table down, and then Honnie brings me my
There you go.
beverage service and my meal.
Yeah.
I feel right at home.
Okay, there you go.
And
This is not a joke. This is true. I'm liking this, and
At the end of the
I'm like, what did you do when what do you do during the day in your office? How do you feed yourself? Do you starve?
Yeah. Are you getting tired of peanut packets and all
that?
Pretzels? Pretzels. At the end of the day, does Honnie come out and you say, you got to put your tray up, we're ready for landing?
Yeah. But she has to give me a little hot towel first.
Oh, there you go.
That's right.
There you go.
Thing.
There you go.
Well, we find your story just fascinating, really unique, because you've been married for 16 years now, right?
Right.
But you really came together different stages of life and different stages in your career. And Honnie, you were working in the nonprofit space, and then you make this transition over to media. And Gary, you were in the business world. So how did you meet?
Well, we met through a friend, actually.
A mutual friend.
Yeah.
And our friend Holly.
Yes.
Yes, mutual friend.
Right. Both being single at the same time. And we were like a couple of, high school girls, so anybody interesting in your life? Have you met anyone interesting? We would kind of exchange. She's like, well, yeah, there's this nice guy, Gary, but she'll probably kill me for saying this. But she said, he's too old for me. We're almost the same age, a couple years apart.
Yeah.
But I just think he's a really great guy. And I said, I'd love to get to know him a little bit more. And we decided to meet. In fact, I sort of initiated, and I said, hey, I'm going to watch hockey playoffs at this local little place down in Huntington Beach. And if you want to come, you're more than welcome, but it's hockey playoffs. So this is serious. Yeah. But he showed up.
There you go.
Like you gotta love a girl who loves hockey.
I guess you do.
Oh my goodness,
yes. You do. Yeah. Now,
bucket list.
By your own admission, you were a little later in life. Yes. At that stage in your life, you're a little bit more set in your daily rhythms, and you also have family dynamics going into it. Was it a pretty harmonious emerging of the rivers, or was it a lot of torrents?
No, it was actually surprisingly smooth.
Really?
I have 2 grown kids, so you always wonder, well, how's that going to work out as things get more serious? But in this case, they both love Honnie. They view her as kind of their mom now, and so that was easy. That was the easy part.
They're just amazing. They're not having had children of my own, I couldn't have asked for 2 more amazing young people. So it's just been really neat.
I love it.
That's great.
So when you were in the nonprofit space, so now you got a new, like I said, new career, a new marriage,
new family,
all this newness. And then how did you make that transition over to your first steps into media?
Well, it was kind of interesting. I look back on, I had spent almost 10 years with a ministry called Campus Crusade for Christ. I was the director of their conference ministry. So I was used to doing large events in theater and, handling big groups of 1,000 at a time for conferences and concerts. And, when I left Crusade, it was about the time, just a little bit later after, before Gary and I had met. And I thought, what, how cool would it be to do what I had done in a conference environment, but do it around the world. And instead of doing it in a, conference center kind of environment. And Gary loves to travel. He's been to more countries than I can even, I don't know how many. He's been everywhere. So we both had this, he had this great love for travel, and I had, spent so much time working, hadn't had a lot of time to travel. So we started to travel a little bit, and Gary said, gosh, wouldn't it be really cool to be like a travel critic or a travel writer? That's
Rick Steves' job. I mean, it's like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so I thought, that's really cool. Maybe we can kind of take your knowledge of travel and what you know around the world, and my desire to kind of take people to all these places where they can get outside of their comfort zone and God can meet them. Maybe we can, do something there together. And that's when we started a travel company. And we started doing what I was doing in sort of a faith-based conference environment. and doing it all over the world. So we take 1,000 people to the Bahamas and do like a missions, cruise, or we'll go to, Jordan or Turkey or Israel. And then we started getting requests like, well, hey, that's a really neat concept. Why don't you start, you ever thought about doing a television show?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was talking about it, and I'm like, well, how hard can this be? I've done radio.
Ignorance is bliss.
Be careful what you wish for. Right?
Yeah.
You are a go for it girl. You are. I just love it.
It's a good thing we don't know what we don't know.
And I would just add an interesting little twist to what Honnie was saying is that concept literally happened on our honeymoon.
It did.
We were, I don't know.
It was Mary's Boone.
Mary's Boone in St. Martin. And we were waiting to go on our cruise that we were going to do for our honeymoon. And we were there the day before. And we were just hanging out, sitting by the pool and whatever. And, she had left her job. And she was like, well, what am I going to do now that, I've left my job? And I said, well, you don't really need to work, so do something you want to do. And that's when this whole thing started to unfold.
When the 747 came flying over the pool.
And Mary,
that's a sign.
Literally sits on the runway of the St. Martin Airport. So you can watch these giant airplanes touch down while you're, sunning yourself on the pool.
But when Gary's like, I need to be able to tell people about stuff like this. I didn't see this in TripAdvisor or whatever. We're like, hey, let's, that's how it started.
When did it develop into you started filming it? I mean, this went on for 8 years.
Yeah.
In 158 countries.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this wasn't just that's that. You really, come on, kids, let's put on a show. We had first started doing a radio program before that. So we started getting an idea for some of the destinations and the kinds of, we were advertiser supported. So some of the advertisers that would support us and things like that. And we just started putting destinations on the docket, and they were based on where our advertisers would support us. So let's see. All right, who's stepping today? Turkish Airlines. Going to Turkey.
Follow the money.
Seeds of that producer, right? To come.
Now you guys are shifting into media, and we'll get into it because you've gone much, much further in the last years since I've known you. But Gary, you're no novice. Even though you spent most of your adult life in the business world, it's in your DNA. Your grandfather, Erich Korngold, is he's Hollywood legend, royalty. He's thought of as the father of film scoring. And I want to add a little note. I don't want to geek out too much on his credits, but my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is your grandfather, is what made him so unique and influential is prior to him, particularly with Robin Hood, it would just be background music in a movie. Right. But he comes along and he's suddenly giving every character a theme. He's giving every scene an emotion. So he's really furthering the story through the scoring. And you think of Hans Zimmer, or you think of John Williams, who were greatly influenced by Erich Korngold, and you think of this concept of giving every character theme music in Darth Vader. Yeah, it's like you hear the music and Darth Vader's coming in, but that was kicked off, initiated by Erich Korngold.
And I was reading up and just realizing, truly, John Williams, he credits his career to your grandpa. This is so influenced him. So these guys are all going.
Yeah, there's a lot of if you are an aficionado of film music, and you listen to the various scores that are created by these really super talented people like John Williams or Hans Zimmer or Danny Elfman, even in later years. They all kind of followed and not to get too techie and geeky on that, but you know, in classical music, they have a lot of concepts called leitmotifs, so that each, like you had pointed out, each character has their theme, so that you kind of know when that character is coming back into the story, all of a sudden that particular theme comes into play. And because my grandfather was first and foremost a classical composer, and he was probably the foremost composer in the 20th century in Europe, he was able to use that skill set to create that whole movement in film music.
Yeah.
And that's how Robin Hood came, because originally when they offered him the movie, you know, he's like, he watched some of the rushes of the film and he's like, I don't think so. This isn't, you know, I don't compose for action movies, was his remark. And then of course, when Hitler marched into Austria, then he had a change of heart and said, well, maybe I will do this.
Yeah.
You know,
maybe I'll go lowbrow and go into the movies.
Yeah. And Errol Flynn's like a newcomer in that movie, right? So it's not like he's a noted actor too. So he's.
Oh yeah, no, he was, I think my grandfather ultimately did almost all of Errol Flynn's movies, as far as, especially the earlier ones, the Seahawk, he did Robin Hood, Elizabeth and all the movies that Errol Flynn did with, you know, that huge cast of actors that Warner Brothers had. I mean, you know, he worked exclusively for Warner's. His house was literally 3 blocks from Warner Brothers. Yeah. So he was able to just walk to work every day. It was a pretty good life that he had at that particular point in time.
Yeah.
You know, he only would do 2 or 3 movies a year. Period.
Wow.
He just said, I'm not doing more than that. And that was back when everything was kind of, you know, an assembly line. They pumped out.
Oh yeah,
the
truly.
machine.
Yeah.
It was, he had a unique arrangement with them. And
because he was so revered as a classical composer, he was able to cut deals that nobody else.
Oh yeah.
And nobody else could cut deals. What I love about you, Honnie, is that you are like this consummate learner. I mean, there was a time, I think there was not a conference that somehow you weren't at. I mean, you were just, like you said, flying everywhere. But
well, let me interrupt you for.
I loved that.
I met you at a conference.
Oh.
Do you remember the conference? We met, I'm going to guess we met about 15 years ago. And I was speaking at a conference in LA. Forgot the name of the conference. My friend Phil Cook was also speaking, and we had lunch, and you came over and introduced yourself.
It was Visual Story Network.
Visual Story Network. That's what it was.
Now.
Oh, you are?
The Tabers.
Yeah, okay. Yes. Do you recall the year? It seems to me it was like the mid-2000s.
It was a long time ago. In fact, Clyde Tabor, who runs Visual Story Network, he and I were trying to think about how long ago that was, and I don't know. It's got to be at least.
You were just a little girl.
14 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, so you guys were newlyweds when we met you.
Yeah. We were.
There you go.
Well, there's a lot of wisdom to be gleaned. And I think if there's a humility that comes when you say, you know what, I don't know it all. I don't know it all. I'm a constant learner. And it's not just learning, you're connecting with people, you're building relationships. I love that about you. You're a seeker, you're a knocker.
I'm a big believer in demystifying processes. So like, for instance, years ago, the very first time we went to Sundance, the thing that drove me was, I want to demystify this festival process. How does it work? How does it function? Same thing with Cannes, same thing with any of the things that we get involved in, is like, I want to demystify it. Because once you do that, and once you break it down and understand how it works, it's no longer daunting. And then you can take what's useful out of those things and get rid of the rest, and it's you can move on to the next thing, because you've checked that off the box and you know how it's going to be helpful.
Yeah, and you know, especially if any young people are watching this interview and this conversation, this industry that we're in changes quicker than maybe any industry there is.
Yeah.
It's changing constantly. You kind of think you figured out the combination, and then it changes, and the platforms change, and the audiences, things they enjoy changes. And now everything's changing. But that's one thing that is so important, that you're always learning. And that's one thing we appreciate about you. Most of the time we see you guys is at a conference or a film festival. You mentioned Gary Sundance we go to
every year.
Yeah, we have our Thai food on Main Street every single year. We love it.
Yeah, and now we love the fact that it has led and fed into, now you are a producer. You've got multiple projects in development, right? You are working with, what's it, an initiative within Georgia?
Oh yeah, tell us about the initiative in Georgia to bring more production to South Georgia.
Yeah. I think, for us, we've had more forward motion on our projects since we have moved our production offices out of LA, which is crazy. But I think for us, we found that most of the people that are investors in our projects, particularly development investors, the kinds of stories that we tell, the true story, inspiration kind of projects, our investors were coming from the Southeast, because that's, those are the kinds of projects they want to support. I don't know that we had any investors for any of our projects that came out of Southern California.
Not that I can think of.
Do you think
you've got too much competition?
Because
that's what I was going to ask.
There's a lot of competition, and the kinds of projects that we do are not usually the kinds of things that are getting, there's not a lot of it getting made there, and the competition is fierce for the dollars that are there. So a couple of things led us to Georgia. One, that was the first thing, just having that community, that support base financially, because we're independent filmmakers, and we've got to go out there and generate our own, everything we do. But the second thing was, I just feel, that Georgia is a place to be for the kinds of stories that we tell, not just from the money side of things, but just from the value side. And there's so much going on in Georgia right now.
Let's talk about the kinds of stories you want to tell. How does your faith inform either your approach to a project or a project that connects with you that you want to tell?
Well, I think it's kind of a twofold process. I mean, I'm usually the one that's out there scouting for stories, and then we're kind of like the hunter-gatherer here, but in the reverse with story. So I'll kind of find things that, maybe something we've read, maybe a book, maybe something in the news. I gravitate to true stories because they're the ones that inspire me the most. And, wow, okay, if he can do it or she can do it, imagine, maybe I could too. It's just, there's something about that. And so then I'll bring the story back to Gary, and I'll know that he's going to vet pretty hard. He's going to be the one that says, okay, let's think about this. Let's talk about who's going to go see that.
Important question.
Audience.
Important.
And he's the one that'll do the deep dive into the comps, and when it comes time to reading any source material like books or whatever, he'll dig into that stuff, and if there's any holes, he's going to bring it up.
I love that, the balance of the strengths and weaknesses and coming all together.
We've had we mostly get involved in projects at the very beginning of the development.
Yes.
Acquiring the IP, everything. But we've been involved in a few projects that we've come on late stage after they've already finished. Most of the production, maybe they're in post, will come on and will help. And sometimes it's hard in that way because you don't really have the ability to influence the project from a marketing standpoint too, because things that you do early on in production and your choices with your script can affect.
Yeah, you're playing a repairman instead of
and sometimes
a builder.
You can't fix that stuff, and we've had a couple of those. So we've learned that that's not really our thing. We really like to get involved, in the early stages, because we can choose those projects that speak to us, speak to our heart, and speak to things that we feel called to, and the stories that we think will move the needle in society. Things that are going to make a difference, because I mean, now more than ever, people are hungry.
Yes.
Stories of hope and
Yes.
stories of inspiration and stories that help them get to tomorrow where they can go, you know what? It's going to be okay.
You have a good handle too on the type of project. This is your project. That isn't our project, you know?
Well, hey, I mean, really, is that not shifting gears? Truly, life off screen, is that not how life is? I mean, you come to life and you say, these, as a couple, these are our non-negotiables.
These are values.
This is who we are. This is the litmus by which we're going to live our life. So, I mean, what about for you guys, just as a couple, and how you navigate this industry? What have been those signposts that you said, this is who we are? This is our coat of arms.
I think it's kind of interesting because, you know, as, you know, approaching this industry later in life for me, and Gary having grown up in it, and actually, you know, his father was on the producing side, on the music producing side as well, and said, hey, come on, Gary, let's, you know, come work in the family business.
Yeah.
Gary was like, no. So
I saw all the bad sides of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, this isn't for me. I'll go my own way.
so he's kind of coming at it at a little different place than I am, but we're such a kind of a unicorn in this business, especially working at it together, that we don't have the time or the luxury to make bad choices or to
good point.
You know, take things on because, hey, we're in our 30s, let's give this a shot. You know, no, everything that we do and everything that we choose to do in this business has got to be intentional. It's got to be totally right down the pipeline with the things that are important to us and the things that we're really excited about, because we're not spring chickens, you know. So
speak for yourself.
Yeah. That's offensive, Honnie. You know, but I want to go back to what Gary said. You saw the dark side growing up of the business, and now, Honnie, you weren't as exposed to the industry. Did you have a little bit of a romantic view of the industry, and then Gary gave you a reality check, or how did that work?
I think, you know, it's probably an unfortunate comparison, but having spent time in ministry, and I can remember like hiring people when I was in ministry that would work for me, and they'd be all like doughy-eyed and, wow, isn't it amazing? You get to work for ministry, and wow, you know, it must be so wonderful. Oh, you must sing Kumbaya every day, you know.
Well, we do. That's how we start our day.
Yeah. But that was always like, you know, a talk that I had to give them. Okay, let's talk about this. Yes, it's ministry, but you know, it functions this way, and this is the real world, and it's not all, you know, beautiful and wonderful. And so I think just having a little bit of knowledge from where Gary came from, and then also coming out of ministry, having that realization that things are not what they appear, you know. And I guess with this whole thing, even though it's creative, I've always approached it with a business mindset as well. And I never really got caught up in the, oh, wow, this is going to be so cool. I will say there was one moment in the last 14 or 15 years that I can go, oh yeah, that was kind of cool. Because it's one of those moments where you kind of, you know, get excited about the first time you see yourself on your own television show on television. That was kind of a fun, strange moment. And I remember exactly where I was standing. I was standing in our bedroom, and it came, I think we were on Family Net or Inspiration Network or a couple of those. And I remember turning it on, and I remember turning the TV on in our bedroom, and I'm like, that's me. You know, and then after the, you know, 50, 70, 100 times, you know, you don't, but that first moment, that was probably the one sort of, hey, this is cool moment that I can really remember, you know, in that whole process. But the second really cool moment, and you were with me, was when we got to meet Bruce Beresford, who's our writer-director for one of our films in London, and sitting down with him going, wow, okay, here's a guy I've loved since forever, driving Miss Daisy, Tender Mercies, and we're sitting across the table and he's saying yes to writing and directing our project.
Wow.
That was just
God moment.
And I think even the better part is he was all fanboy over my grandfather because he is a huge Korngold fan.
Yeah.
He directed one of my grandfather's operas when it premiered at the Sydney Opera House.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
So he's
my goodness, full circle.
Wow.
But,
well, you bring up a very good point then, because this is one of those remarkable career moments you had, but you can speak to the fact that as a producer, getting anything made is such a Herculean task.
Oh.
And it's really difficult. So what has kept you going and kept you engaged and not giving up? Because it takes so long and you have to have such patience.
You have to see the light at the end of the tunnel and then realize it isn't a train coming toward you. So, I mean, from my perspective, having been in the business world, I mean, I've ridden the highs and the lows so many times that I don't let things bother me too much. You know, I know equilibrium tends to be a constant in life eventually. So I always look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Me, not so much.
She gets a little bit more agitated when things aren't going well. And it's frustrating, as you know, right now with this industry. It's literally ground to a halt. And we were just picking up steam on 2 or 3. You know, we had one that that's in production, and fortunately it's an animated film, so they can still
moving.
You know, that still work. But, you know, one of our big films, we were like this close to getting ready to pull the trigger, and then boom, pandemic, and everything stopped, ground to a halt. And, you know, we know friends, you know, our friend Darren, who works with us, he was already on set when they shut it down.
That's so hard.
He was
he's back now. He's back, so that's good.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the kind of craziness.
The thing that's probably the most frustrating about this business for me is that you have to decipher when yes really means yes. Because one of the things that I say all the time, and I don't even remember where I picked it up, but it's so true. Beware when you walk out of a meeting and people are high-fiving. Because that means bad things.
Yes.
You know, it's like that level of, hey, this is great. We're definitely going to do this. Let's go. Yay. You know,
yes,
that's just not how it works, you know, and it's just a long deciphering of which yes is the right yes, and which yes fizzles out into nothing, and which agreements you think are going to sign never do, and which money is supposed to show up in the bank and never does, you know. But it's the yeses that are actually harder to decipher, because you get more yeses than you get more nos. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
No, I do.
People they want to say yes. You know, they tell you, they tickle your ears with, oh, love that project. Oh yeah. Oh, I think this will fit here, here, and here. You know, and so you're always kind of wading through, and you become this sort of decipher of what's real and what's not. You know?
So how does your faith inform that? I mean, how does that navigate you through those processes? How does your relationship ground you when you know, because it sometimes it can feel like the two of you against the world, or you know, so where does faith in your relationship?
I would say I mean, obviously there's a basis for everything in your faith, but purely from the business movie side of things, I kind of take, and it's probably the wrong word, but I take a fatalistic kind of point of view with it, where if it happens, then that's what God meant for it to be. If it doesn't, then there's a reason why.
Amen.
I like to think that there's something better behind it that's going to come up.
Truly.
Just it's that God's provision for opening the door for that one. So
there's something that I think about often, and I don't remember where I picked it up, but it's a line that goes something like, "It's not rejection, it's protection." Mm-hmm. So good. The project is being rejected. It's not that you're being rejected. It's that God's protecting you for something better, protecting you from something that could be horrible. And that plays out in our lives over and over. It happens a lot.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. Wow. In this industry,
I dodged a bullet here.
Right? Yes, truly.
But in this industry and also in life, God, He brings great purpose to the difficulties we walk through. Mm-hmm. And every time you hear a no, it can be devastating, especially if you were, all your chips were in, you were really in, and you get that no. But how often do you see that, that project fell through, but out of that, I met so-and-so, and they introduced me to so-and-so, and this connected, and it's like, wow, had I never gone down that road that was a dead end, I would never have met or done this that was, the real, gem in my resume.
All the time. And it's just, that's part of what you hold on to, knowing that that's a truth. That is a constant truth in everything that we do. So,
one last question. Okay, you've been married 16 years. You had the shifts. We've talked all about that. Looking back, what would you tell yourselves 16 years ago, as you were thinking about getting married, you were starting the journey into media? What have you learned over these 16 years that you would tell yourself then?
There's one thing that I would definitely say. Go ahead. Listen to Gary more. I mean, we joke about it sometimes, but because I'm a little strong-willed.
No,
a little bit.
Not you.
I love it.
And there's so many times where he'll say, you know what, why don't you just try X, Y, and Z?
Yes.
Well, no, I think maybe I could do it this way, or I could do it that way. And he'll just patiently sit by and then come full circle. And if I just would have done that, I could have saved myself so much time and so much grief and so much stress. Because he's got some wisdom that I'm lacking, so I definitely would listen more.
To
what he was saying.
Yeah. Well,
dear,
Peggy and I, one of our real joys is we have had the pleasure of having a front row seat in your guys' lives, your pursuits, the projects, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it has been such a joy. We have so much love for you guys.
Yes.
And we hold our friendship with such value, and we have such admiration for you. Mm-hmm. You never say die. We've been there with you in the trenches when you got the call that, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But you guys have persevered with great grace and faith and endurance and tenacity and perseverance.
And I love, I've told you this before, Honey, but you're one of those rare people, and so are you, Gary, that you're champions. You come alongside, and isn't that the role of the producer, that finds a story worth telling, and then you champion it when few know about it, and you sustain that, and you keep it up. So that's not just what you do with projects; that's what you do with friendships.
Yes.
And we have been the benefactors of that. So we bless you both.
We love having you guys as friends, and like at Sundance, it's always our highlight.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the things that I think I've told you guys this before, but for us newlyweds compared to you guys, it's nice to have friends like you that show us what good looks like.
Oh, you're sweet.
Love you.
Yeah. Well, we love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great.
Yes.
It was fun.
I can't wait till we can share a meal.
Yes,
absolutely.
Sooner than later.
Soon,
Okay. Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for Life Off Screen with Dan and Peggy Ruppel. Life Off Screen is produced by Master Media International. Our technical director is Jason Rugg. Please subscribe to the Life Off Screen YouTube channel or subscribe to the Life Off Screen podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave your comments in the comment section, and to find out more about Master Media, go to mastermedia.com. Thanks again for joining us. Hope to see you next time.